Hello, everybody. Today we're going to talk about this Mars Rahu conjunction happening here in Aquarius. And you can see that there are two other planets here, the Sun and Mercury is also retrograding. So this means that Mercury is moving towards Rahu and Mars. And actually, Rahu moves backwards through the chart too, if you didn't know that. But Rahu and Ketu, so Rahu will be moving here into Capricorn, and then Ketu will be moving here into Cancer while all the other planets are moving forward, unless like they're retrograding, of course. But Rahu and Ketu don't ever change directions or retrograde. They always go backwards. And it's like they're unwinding our karmas because these are the two karma planets. So they're very important when we're thinking about like global events and looking at the collective. And right now, we've been working through the solar eclipse cycle of Leo and Aquarius. And this has been really intense because we've had a lot of planets here that have been involved this whole time. Plus, we are working through like the collective and the government. So this is like an intense eclipse cycle to have in general anyway, especially when we have the energy in Rahu in Aquarius, where it's like the going towards the collective. And Aquarius is very unconventional. It's also like where we are, challenge the government and where we can be rebellious and kind of do our own thing. And so we're feeling a ton of this energy, and we've had a ton of planets here in Aquarius for a minute, and it's been really intense. And we're seeing that on a global scale with all of the news and the wars. And I mean, I even mentioned like I was sure a war would happen during this eclipse, and I kind of laughed it off though, because I mean, nowadays I feel like there's a war all the time and it doesn't really mean that much. But in this case, it kind of does because this war is escalating very quickly. And now we have Mars and Rahu coming together. And when Mars and Rahu come together, it's like very exaggerated. And so Mars and Rahu are all about like getting stuff done and drive and impulse and like having a ton of energy. And so they're activated and ready to go. And Rahu doesn't have a body, it's just a head. So Rahu doesn't digest things. So Rahu will just act. And when Mars is there too, it makes Rahu feel like he needs to act even faster and be even more impulsive. And so this energy is going to create a feeling of desperation with world leaders because not only have we seen the negotiations between like the governments and their people changing, we are watching like the entire world starting to realign and change too. And so this Aquarius Leo axis is going beyond just governments. It's like affecting the whole world alignment right now. And then with Rahu and Mars here and the story of alignment, realignment happening, I feel like there's going to be a lot of these like hot-headed leaders being impulsive and very reactive. And I think there's going to be a lot of them basically falling into this into this energy of Rahu and Ketu. And so I think as crazy as things have been so far, I do think it's going to become more intense. And it doesn't always happen on the day of the conjunction. It can happen like a few days after because that energy can take a minute to kind of integrate into reality, but it could happen on that day because we also have the moon here in Sagittarius in the sign of like war and government or war and military. And the moon is like timing, and it's in Sagittarius can be kind of a volatile area. This is kind of a volatile area of the sky. And so anyway, I do think that we might actually feel this energy like on that day and see like consequences, but I do think it will continue forward for many days. This energy of the Rahu Mars coming together, plus like they're together for a couple of days anyway. So expect not that it even again, like I want to come back and be like, does it even matter if I'm like, expect a lot of news and craziness? Because I feel like it just always is. So take that for what it's worth. And then also we have Mercury retrograding. I mentioned that earlier, and this is going to cause for like miscommunication, miscalculations, and I think really just add to the problem of this impulsivity because I think people are going to be reacting to maybe even like a miscommunication or just some type of false scenario. And then they're going to react to something that maybe didn't need to be so reacted to. And I feel like that's the part of this where you can bring this into your own life is try to take time right now not to just react because people might not be communicating very well and they might be being misunderstood. And so in your own personal life, just really notice how you can take a minute before reacting to just breathe and think it through. And if you're feeling angry and reactive, and you're like, oh, I'm angry, I've got to say something. No, no, no. It's fine. You do need to say something eventually, probably to address the situation. But when you're angry, you're not going to communicate effectively. And you're going to probably put yourself in one of those situations where people are just going back and forth and nobody's getting anywhere. And right now, with Mercury retrograding and Rahu and Mars, I would suggest only having conversations when you feel calm and like you can actually speak from your heart and not when you're angry and reactive. So that is my advice during this time for your personal life. And then as far as like the global news goes, there's not a ton we have control over right now. But if you are someone like me who's really sensitive to it and you have a hard time with like war and things like that, and I think that we all are affected by war and we just are like keep it on a subconscious level. We don't try to bring a lot of that to the surface. And so this is, in my opinion, a good time to do some of that shadow work as well, where you're confronting the fact that like war is painful and we don't have to like live through other people's experiences or take on other people's pain. Just take on your own pain of like your disappointment or whatever it is that you feel during this time that like breaks your heart. And you don't need to go into every story and like cry for um every like person's personal situation, but instead you can have like that collective cry and keep it about like your own pain and like that own your own feeling of maybe disempowerment and disappointment and the things that are actually coming up for you specifically rather than taking on someone else's pain. And then we are going to be in a Sun or a Kala Sarpa yoga. And this is when Rahu and Ketu are, all the planets are on one side or the other. And so as soon as Mars passes Rahu here, all of the planets are going to be on this side of Rahu and Ketu. And that is going to trigger a big karmic reaction. And this means that we're going to work through some type of like unfinished lesson on a global scale. So I this goes on till July 10th, and this is all being started right after Mars and Rahu come into conjunction. So I think that this war and a lot of this escalation and a lot of these things are going to keep continuing to escalate until July 10th. And I don't give a ton of importance to a Kalasarpa yoga in general. But because this eclipse season has been so intense and so many planets have been involved, and then it starts with the Rahu Mars conjunction. I think this is going to be a little bit of a harder karmic lesson for us to process. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I am trying to keep it actually practical because we are always working through karmic lessons and we've had way heavier things happening on the planet before. This is always a continuous cycle that we're all working through. And there is nothing really to fear because everything is not necessarily bad or good. It's just how what we do with it that's bad or good. So trying to just see things more like as they are and not try to get wrapped up in a ton of stories because you don't always know the whole story. And sometimes you have to go through a little bit of pain in order to come out on the other side and really learn what you needed to learn. And that's what karmic lessons really are. They're just about growth. And sometimes growth can be really painful, but that doesn't make it bad. And I I don't think that war is ever good, and I don't think that you need to have like violence or things have to like completely be destroyed or to break down. But in the case of what's happening right now, unfortunately, I don't think there's any other way out of this because things have come so far. And so I do think that we have to just kind of face reality. And if you're like me and you're affected by it, now is the time to find some way of getting involved, whether it's and it doesn't have to be necessarily like a protest against the war or anything like that. But if you are a sensitive person, then I think the best way to work through that energy is to try to just get involved with something where you feel like you're making a difference and you're contributing in some form or fashion. And then this way, you're taking the challenges that are coming in and you're able to like put them towards you're taking that energy and putting it towards something positive. And that's how we learn the lessons and that's how we come up on these like karmic lessons is by actually like engaging in the lesson and getting involved. So that's my other suggestion if you are a sensitive soul and a lot of this stuff is really getting to you. And when you get involved with something, you'll meet other like-minded people like you, and you'll be reminded that you're not alone and that you have a community. And that is what is going to be so important as we start to move into this new reality, is that we're going to need to start making sure that we are more connected to our community. So for a very long time, we all started to move away from each other. We moved into the suburbs and like we barely know our neighbors anymore. And we became really disconnected through social media and the internet. And then 2020 also made us more disconnected. And now it's time to start moving back to community. And we need it more than ever. In order for us to get through these challenges, we need to create communities around us. So, this is another great way of creating a community of people. And if you can create like online communities are great. I love online communities and I have my own school group that is my online community that I think is very important, but it's going to be even more important to start to create communities in the real world, in real life. And so this is one of the ways if you join like a political movement or just some type of organization in your local area, then you're going to feel like you're making a contribution in a positive way. And you're going to also be making like joining into a community, and we need as many of these communities as we can have. So we don't just need like one community. Okay, I've got my one community. Like let's start to expand and create multiple communities around you, so that when if things do get challenging, then we have ways of bringing people together and helping each other. And then yeah, I'm gonna leave that there because I feel like I'm going on a rant now. But I do think it's important that if you are sensitive, if you are feeling a lot of this energy, then figure out a way that you can get involved. And that is going to help you work through this because I don't think this energy is going to be short and sweet. I think it's going to be drawn out for a few months, and we're gonna be feeling pretty exhausted by the time we get to July from the stuff and burnt out. And so if you don't have an outlet, then it's probably gonna affect you more. So I hope you have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video.